Hello again. Hope everyone's summer is coming off to a good start. I'm joined again by my grandfather.
Hi, I'm Marlin Crawford.
And for today I thought we'd review a very summer movie. In fact, this is the film that many people say invented the term summer blockbuster. Also the movie that jump-started Steven Spielberg's career from 1975, Jaws. This is definitely a classic. Jaws this is not an anniversary review, but it's still pretty old. It's 42 years old this year.
It's not old as far as I'm concerned, but...
Of course. But yeah, this movie came out when, sorry if this offends you, when you were 28.
I still feel pretty good.
Did you see it when it came out?
I did not see it when it came out. I was busy doing a lot of other things. I didn't see it until after it was in reruns and all of that kind of thing. What I do remember when it came out is it scared a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people on East Coast and West Coast started staying out of the water more.
My mom's never seen this movie because she likes to swim in the ocean. I saw this movie about, I think almost 10, maybe 9 years ago. I wasn't 13 yet, but I definitely saw it around that time, and I thought it was great, thrilling movie, and didn't affect me none. I still went in the ocean. I have met a few people that were really turned off from going in the ocean after seeing this movie, and I can understand why. It really can put some good paranoia in you.
Or common sense.
For those who don't know, I don't be surprised if anyone doesn't, Jaws is a thriller movie. I think that's a good term for it. It falls into the thriller genre.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that think it's a horror movie, and it has a few horror elements. I don't know if it has enough to fully be classified as a horror movie.
I wouldn't call it horror.
And it's about a island beach resort called Amity. Is Amity a real place?
As far as I know, no.
They never specify exactly where Amity takes place. I'm guessing maybe on the East Coast. And it's a summer place, and everybody goes there for the 4th of July, and a shark, a great white shark, swims into the beach waters and starts eating off people swimming. And Roy Scheider, an actor who I'm pretty sure most people won't know unless they're over 30, he plays the chief of police of Amity, Martin Brody, and he's the first person to find out about the idea this could be a shark attack, and tries to close off the beaches and do the appropriate and responsible thing. But the town's local mayor, named Mayor Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, doesn't want the beaches closed because they're a summer town and it could affect their income, I guess.
Yes, to the point. I mean, they're very concerned about that. It's make or break for the summer crowd to come and enjoy themselves and spend their money. The town needs that to live, to prosper. It was implied in the movie that the mayor even put pressure on the local coroner, not the
guy who does the autopsies.
Yes. Anyway, medical examiner, on the local medical examiner, to change his initial assessment that it was a shark attack to it was probably an unseen swimmer caught in a propeller of a boat coming in after dark.
Yeah, and then another attack happens, and the local politicians do agree to do something to look into it, to search for a shark, but at the same time they don't want to close the beaches off entirely. They want it wrapped up pretty quickly, like get things sorted through very fast, like most politicians. And then a shark expert, played by Richard Dreyfuss named Matt Hooper comes in, and he is the only other person with a pretty reasonable view and realistic view of the situation. And while everyone is jumping to fix things fast, he and Brody are the only ones who are taking their time to really examine and try to investigate the situation.
Yes, and there's a lot of pressure. Small town, people want the crowds, and they do a good job of doing footage of people coming in on tourist boats and unloading, bringing in the thing that they really want for the summer. Yeah. And so they develop that pretty well. They do. How important this is to this town. People, I think we're all like that. We want to believe what we think. We want to think what we believe is true. And they had never had this kind of thing before. And not now. It's the 4th of July, beginning of summer on the East Coast.
Biggest event for their community.
Yes, absolutely. All summer long, people are coming and spending money.
They did a very good job of, I think, portraying the mayor character without having him come off, I think, as too one-dimensional.
Yes, not one-dimensional, but
still
pretty steadfast in what he thought was good for the town, and he obviously did not want to believe that this was something that was real, that there was not only a great white shark, but a 25-foot, many 1,000-pound great white shark setting up feeding territory on the beaches.
The portrayal of the locals was pretty interesting. Like, there are a ton of local characters in the first half. Not all of them get a lot of screen time. Some of them I don't even think we find out their names. But they did a good job. And the scene that I think is both funny but kind of lets you in on how they're all thinking is when they have the town meeting and when Chief Brody is talking about what they're going to do to try and find the shark after, I think, the second or third attack. The question they all keep asking is, are you going to close the beaches? And when he says yes, they all start breaking out, just yapping off, going, oh no, I have my business, that stuff.
They did well, Spielberg did well in developing the tension between what we know now, 2 or 3 or 4 decades more. We know more about sharks now generally, and the tension between what we would today call, proper safety measures and the economic need of the community.
Yes, and when I watched that, a funny thought that came to my mind when they were getting upset that he said he was going to close the beaches was, you people do know that someone got eaten by a shark, right? Like, that's just what my thought would be if I was in that meeting.
Well, in that meeting, they were still at the point where the medical examiner had changed his tune, and the expert, Richard Dreyfuss from the Oceanography Society, hadn't arrived yet.
Mm-hmm. And Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider, they worked pretty well together in the first half of this movie. Guy who's not, he's the new chief, he's not local to the area, kind of adjusting, and so is the Matt Hooper character. He just comes in from a different part of the country. I think maybe that's where the two characters connect.
Yeah, they do. A bounty was put out by a local woman to catch the shark that ate the children. And so a huge shark, to my mind a huge shark, was caught, and Dreyfuss and the Roy Scheider character worked together to demonstrate, after cutting it open, that this was not the shark, because there was no evidence of the eaten children inside.
Well, only one kid, but yeah. And there's a funny moment here where he rips out a piece of metal, tosses it aside, and Brody picks it up, and it's a license plate.
Louisiana license plate.
Yeah, and he's like, did he eat a car?
So, finally, after additional shark attacks, they get it together.
Particularly after they have the 4th of July event, where they have a lot of good precautions set up. Like the mayor says, do what you need to do to keep it safe, but we are opening those beaches, and everybody's having a good time in the water. The chief and Hooper and a lot of the deputies and I think the Coastal Guard, or I think that's what you call them.
I'm not sure the Coast Guard was there, but yes, there were a lot of people in the water, and Coast Guard may have been there, and watching helicopters going over, looking for, obviously for sharks in the water.
And then somebody spots what appears to be a fin, and everybody freaks out. And then when the boats get closer, they find it's just a couple of kids pulling a very bad prank.
And after they take a big deep breath on that, then the shark does come in again.
And swims into this pond area that's on the edge of the beach, where the chief's son is playing with his friends. And none of the kids get harmed, but this local guy who was just swimming by does get killed. And we get a good gore shot of his severed leg going to the bottom of the water. And with the son in shock, you can kind of tell with the way Brody stares out into the ocean that, like, good cliched line, now it's personal. And then after that, in the hospital, we get this, I think, pretty good scene between Brody and the mayor, where he gets him to finally sign some kind of contract where they can hire a professional shark hunter.
And the professional shark hunter is a local crazy who had offered his services somewhat sooner in the movie. Says, not only will I find him, I will go out and kill the shark.
And I'll bring you its head, its tail, its fin. But before that, the part with the mayor, where he's trying to get him to sign it, and the mayor, I can kind of tell, part of him is up for it, the other part of him is still a little in denial. And I just like the acting in this scene from Murray Hamilton. And the moment where he finally signs it, looking like he's going to pass out.
Yeah, he was still torn. He even said, my kids were on that beach too. So it was more development of the character than you were expecting, and it was a good touch.
Good touch for the guy's last scene, and I liked Roy Schneider's line, "Summer's over, you're the mayor of Shark City." And before we get into Quint, just want to say, the first half of Jaws and the second half, they almost feel like two different movies in a way.
Well, it's clearly Chapter 1, Chapter 2.
And that's not a bad thing. Like, no. They both fit into the same story. But the first half takes place on the island, and we got all these actors. It's a huge cast, a lot of city scenes and beach scenes, very populated. But in the second half, where they bring in Quint, the shark hunter, the second half of the film takes place almost entirely out on the ocean, and the second half only features Quint, Brody, and Hooper. No other characters. It's just these three guys.
As far as the first half and the second half of the movie, you go to just about the halfway point until you start to get a good look at the shark. And it took half of the movie, and my understanding was that when this movie was being made, they had trouble getting the mechanical shark operational.
Yeah,
but they were on a schedule. Spielberg's first real,
he had made about 2 movies before this, but nothing as huge as Jaws.
Nothing on this scale. So what he did was took John Williams, dun, 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 dun. He kept playing that, and you kept expecting things to happen, and so he really built a lot of suspense as you're getting up to the end of the first half, and he did that well.
The suspense in the first half is amazing, And not just with the shark, just the setting up of the attack scenes, where we get these good shots of the locals and the ocean and the beach, and you just know someone's going to die. And yeah, the shark they use, the fake one, on the first day of filming, they were going to use it. It sunk to the bottom of the ocean, so they had to get inventive, and this led to the first half of the film never showing the physical form and only having the attack scenes from the point of view of the shark.
It was excellent work, and it really built the suspense.
And then when we finally do see the shark for the first time, like in a good shot that shows everything, just makes everyone go,
whoa. As Roy Scheider's character, the chief, said, "We're going to need a bigger boat."
Fun fact, that was actually improvised. Roy Scheider just said it with the cigarette in his mouth. "You're gonna need a bigger boat." And
let me just say now, and when the shark appeared in the second half, they didn't overuse the shark either. And so that was good. Because like in a Godzilla movie, everything is Godzilla, every angle, everything like that. They use the shark, but they can continue to be reasonably sparing, so that any time the shark did appear, it was again people were wanting to see it.
the shark looks excellent, and there's some people that still, like, you hear all these jokes about people saying, the shark looks fake. I'm guessing I would like to assume they're referring to the sequels. But here the shark looks great, and we don't see a ton of it in the second half. Like, we see its head pop up every once in a while, and the fin, obviously. The most we see of it, like the full shark, comes in the last 10 minutes. And it's just, next to all the great suspense, we just get some good adrenaline rush in the scenes where the three of them are out on the ocean hunting this thing and chasing it. Like, the John Williams score that impresses me the most here is not the dun 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 dun. It's the music that plays when they're chasing after the barrels that they've hooked on it. Just a good classic adventure music score.
And I thought Spielberg's direction was very good in the way, and it wasn't like flip, all of a sudden, wait a minute, things changed. The shark was the hunter, and they were the prey.
Yeah.
And then it got more and more and more intense in that way.
Spielberg said that when he read the original novel, he actually found himself rooting for the shark, because in the novel, the characters are apparently a lot more unlikable.
Yeah, they even gave Quint some likable qualities and some backstory that made you very sympathetic to his.
The Quint character is he's one of the best game hunter characters, I guess you would call him, in movie history.
Yes, he's got all kinds of shark jaws boiled out and hanging all over where he lives, and that's what he does.
And he seems to have a passion for it, and
they do the backstory that tells you why.
His backstory, we get this good scene where the three of them are in the boat after a day of looking for the shark. And this is, I guess, a good scene where they kind of get to know each other in a sort of rapport. Like, they still have some tension after the scene, but you feel a rapport has been sort of built between them.
Well, a certain amount of drinking helped grease that along, I think. So.
And they're comparing, like, scars on their bodies from past incidents. And they ask him about a particular scar, and he says it's for a tattoo he got removed that said USS Indianapolis. And I remember when we watched that scene, you went, ooh.
Indianapolis was a ship that went down in World War II. 700 men went into the water, and after a couple of weeks, because there's a long story why it didn't get rescued sooner. Only less than half came out. The sharks just fed on him and fed on him and fed on him day after day after day. And he was one of the survivors. That's his backstory.
The character's backstory.
Yeah, Quinn's backstory.
And Robert Shaw did an amazing job for this monologue, telling his backstory and letting them know how he thinks and why he's so passionate about shark hunting.
Yeah.
And just reliving a horrifying experience.
Yeah. Plus he also played the guy, he was he was more than a little crazy. And that added to his, the scariness of the character himself and the bizarreness in the behaviors that he did. We won't go into those necessarily, but
I don't know if he's crazy. He definitely, for me, comes off as a very antisocial person who doesn't function well around others. That's how I saw him.
And yes, but he was the eliminating the chance for a Coast Guard rescue.
That scene,
that's a little crazy.
It was also a little...
It had become him and the shark.
Yeah, he was obsessed.
To the virtual indifference to the other two.
And I found that scene both crazy, but a little crazy, I admit, but also kind of funny. Just how he comes in as Brody's trying to radio for help, and he just smashes the radio with a baseball bat, and he's like, "Excuse me, Chief."
Yes. Crazy.
The Indianapolis speech, I read that speech was like, there were two main writers in this movie, but that speech was written by a specific group of people, because they really wanted to get it right. And one of the co-writers they got was John Milius, who wrote Apocalypse Now, and more famously, is the man responsible for writing the "Do I Feel Lucky" punk speech in Dirty Harry.
Do you feel lucky today? All right.
So yeah.
That's good fact.
Do I feel lucky in Indianapolis speech? Just cool credits. And Robert Shaw actually had a serious alcoholism problem in real life during filming. And filming the Indianapolis monologue took several takes. And the one we see in the movie, I read, was the last take, which he nailed in just one go.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Before we move on to the other cast, I think a very interesting fact to know is Robert Shaw had serious tax problems during filming. I read that they had to, after his scenes were filmed on certain days, they had to immediately fly him out of the U.S. because, yeah, he was really in tax debt.
So that he could not be apprehended before they shot the next scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
Yes.
And the other two main guys, Roy Scheider as Martin Brody. Roy Scheider, he was a great actor, and I haven't seen a ton of his other movie roles. I think the only other full movie I've seen of his, where he had a small role, was The Punisher with Thomas Jane. And yes, you may send your assassins after me after I say this. I have not seen The French Connection. Yes, the shame. Me. I have not. But I do know that that's why Spielberg cast him in this movie, because he liked his performance in that.
Yeah, and I understand that as well. But yeah, he has some good movie credits, but I couldn't reel him off right now. In this, he was effective as the new chief, and he had these other two people. They were all three different characters. The people that finally went out and hunted the shark. And
I found Brody to be very likable, but what's cool is all the characters. They're mostly, like, Quint's got issues, but most of them are likable, but they have some flaws. which really adds to the human factor. And
Oh, humans have flaws? Yes, it does add to the human factor.
and the writing for all the scenes where they're talking, there's some good talking scenes, some good chit chat between the characters, where it really feels real. Like, I read how a lot of people commented the dialogue between not just these three but all the cast. It really feels like real people. And a part of Brody's character that's not delved in too hard that I thought was a very interesting thing to notice and see like how it carries throughout the film is his what I see is his apparent alcoholism.
He wouldn't drink Quint's drink, the one he made himself. So he had some standards, but
Yeah, like that was his one standard. It was just a bit much.
He did sip a few, yes.
But my favorite moment, I guess, with him, like his most vulnerable moment, I think, is when he's with his wife and Hooper, and Hooper's brought some wine over, and Brody pours like the wife and Hooper to like less than half a glass in these wine glasses, and he's holding like a tall drink about the size as tall as this cup, and he just fills it to the brim.
Yes. That was the evening after the woman came up and publicly told him that what she thought of him for knowing but still letting people go in the water, and her son died. Which really was the account from her point of view and really wasn't Brody's fault.
If she had only known.
Yeah, and so he just he stood there and took it. And he was home drinking pretty heavily that night.
I just like that moment, and I'm not sure my Asian genetics would allow it, but part of me thinks someday I'd just like to do that in front of some people. Like pour them a little and then myself a lot.
For a water tumbler, yes.
And Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper. This was one of his earliest roles. Like, it wasn't his first. I think it was right after American Graffiti.
He came in, played the young, well-off oceanographer, and he had all the equipment, and Quint was on his back about all that, and
yeah, and the friction between Hooper and Quint was somewhat real, because Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw did not get along during filming.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like Robert Shaw, his alcoholism really got nasty at times. And also I think he got a little bit too much into character.
And stayed there.
Some fun moments, some good, I guess, the comedy bits, if there are any, is between him and Hooper. Particularly the scene where he's like, "You wealthy college boys are too smart to admit when you're wrong." And as soon as he has his back turned, Hooper's just making faces at him.
Making like 6-year-old faces at him.
And not much else to say other than Richard Dreyfuss did an excellent job. The young guy and very experienced, but also equally afraid, I think, as Brody at times.
True.
And before we get to the climax, just want to say, because you've said many times you think his direction was awesome. Steven Spielberg, definitely great. Every shot in this film just looks beautiful. And with all the underwater filming, it's very impressive. And this was Spielberg's third or fourth film after Duel, which many people call his warm-up job for Jaws, and the Sugarland Express. And then after this, it was 1941, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and so much more. Just incredible. He's been directing for, I believe, 47 years now. Actually longer if you count his early TV credits.
Yes, he's been doing things, and I think he's been a real friend to a lot of other producers and directors, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see.
Aside from Crystal Skull, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I can't think of any really bad stuff to his credit.
I'll go along with that. That was just a disappointing Indiana Jones. The storyline, not Harrison Ford.
Oh, if anything, that movie just showed us Harrison Ford could still kick ass, just wish it could be in a good movie. And this film was written by Carl Gottlieb. I don't know what else he's done. He also acted in this movie. I don't remember his character.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Benchley, who also wrote the novel Jaws that the movie is based on. And Peter Benchley also has a cameo in the film as this TV reporter we see on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that he actually did not get along with Spielberg near the end of filming, mainly because he thought the way that they were going to end the film was pretty stupid.
Well, authors don't like to have their things changed.
The ending to Jaws is one of the most satisfying climaxes, I think, and it's not a traditional happy ending at all. It's more of a bittersweet ending. One of the main characters, Quint, ends up getting eaten by the shark, and knowing his backstory makes it pretty tragic. But it was a well done death scene, very bloody. In fact, I just know if this movie was released today, it would not be a PG. I'm not even sure it would be a PG-13.
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to tell. But yes, Quint. They took some time having Captain Quint get eaten by the shark. It was just moved along step by step, and it was pretty graphic.
And the thing that kills the shark is Hooper has air tanks for scuba diving on board. So Brody, when he's trapped on the boat, throws one of the tanks into the mouth of the great white. And that's what Peter Benchley took issue with. He thought that shooting the air tank to kill the shark was a dumb idea.
I don't even know how he finished it in the novel.
Yeah. Spielberg at one point thought, and I'm glad he didn't do this ending, because it would have been A, a little ridiculous, and B, just too depressing. Spielberg considered ending Jaws by having, after Brody kills the shark, to then look around and see a whole bunch of shark coming in.
Because of all the blood from the other shark, he was like chumming the water and...
Possibly. And I'm not sure I would have wanted that ending.
Nah, I think people were ready for a happy ending at that point.
And yeah, the climax happens with Brody firing at the shark with a rifle, trying to hit the tank in the mouth, and we get one of my favorite moments ever, and I mean this, it's where he's shooting and then he goes, "Smile, you son of a..." Bam, and we just see the shark's guts go all over the place, and the water coming down, and Roy Schneider just yelling in victory.
There was a transfer of the Roy Scheider character in one respect during the movie, is basically he didn't like the water. He didn't go on boats. He didn't go in the water. And by the end of the timeout on this, particularly in the second half of the movie, he's drowning, he's fighting off sharks, he's doing this, he's hanging off a mast that's almost laying over in the water while he's doing the shooting, and he becomes almost a seaman during the development of the movie.
Conquered his fear. And the final line, just a good fitting way to end it, and also a little funny, goes to Hooper. "I used to hate the water. I can't imagine why." And funny enough...
And roll the credits.
Yeah, roll credits. And funny enough, originally in the book, the Hooper character died. And I guess this is because Spielberg wanted the characters to be likable. In the book, Hooper and Brody's wife had an affair behind his back, and that was to lead to Hooper's death, I guess being a form of comeuppance for that. And I don't know, maybe it worked better in the book. Maybe Peter Benchley's writing made it work, but that would have just seemed out of place and dumb here.
Yeah, plus it probably would have spoiled their PG rating.
I don't know, that swimmer in the beginning, the first shark victim, I was surprised just how much you could see of her. Like, she's swimming naked. I was really surprised just how much you could see. Maybe it's because the TV's in HD. But yeah.
It was pretty blurry. Speaking of this, the first swimmer, what Spielberg did is when she got it, you never saw the shark. You never saw the shark. But it was back and forth. She got wrenched here, wrenched there. Was able to cling on to a buoy, and then she was dragged off, up and down, and it just went on and on and on and on, to no avail, because the person that was supposed to come swimming with her was finally passed out drunk on the shore. And so he set up this really graphic scene in the beginning, and then all the other scenes didn't have to be that much, because when the little boy, he just ended up missing.
Well, no, the dog ended up missing. When the boy went under, we saw that big spurt of blood coming out.
We saw the spurt of blood, and then the inflatable, now deflated life raft kind of washing up on the shore. But we didn't see the kind of thing that went on with the first swimmer.
We didn't see her getting chomped up.
Yeah, and so that, I thought that was pretty good. That was pretty interesting, the way he did that.
Aside from Brody pouring the wine in the tall glass, and my favorite scenes are the scene where he's kind of drunk but making faces and playing with his youngest son. I just think that's a very touching scene between a parent and their kid.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
But my all-time favorite scene in Jaws, when we see the blown up carcass of the shark just slowly drift down into the ocean with the blood seeping all over the water, and we hear that soft, cool music score going on. It's hard to explain. I just think it's while it is grisly, it's also, it looks almost beautiful. Like the monster has been vanquished.
Yeah, I don't think it was it assured you that it was final. It's over. That part. But
time to breathe again.
Yes.
I just like that shot so much. And before we leave the spoiler section, let's talk about the first real jump scare in the movie. The scene where they find the tooth and then whoosh, through the hole in the boat.
Yes, the dead fisherman, who's now white and puffed up face, kind of comes into the hole where the shark had, and the Dreyfuss character had dug out the large shark's tooth. Did you notice in this movie that twice Dreyfuss dropped into the ocean something important?
Yeah.
The shark's tooth and the
spear that had the poison in it.
It had heavily concentrated, he named what it was, that he was supposed to be in the cage, and when the shark came to get him in the cage, it was supposed to get him in the mouth, and as a way to get this into him. So
I guess he's a Butterfinger guy.
Well, on the other hand, they were two very dramatic things that caused him to
His reaction to the first bit, I thought was very well done, very real. Like he finds the tooth, and then all of a sudden in this hole, I don't know if it's a severed head, but yeah, the dead semen pops out. And the first time I saw that almost 10 years ago, I literally just, my heart almost stopped. And I was like him, like, whoa! And that shot was actually added after the whole movie had been filmed.
So Dreyfuss had to go back in the water and do it,
or they used a double. I just know that the shot of the boat, the broken boat, and the head coming out, they filmed that scene in a swimming pool.
Okay.
And because they were short for time, and to make it look like the ocean, they poured milk in it.
Well, I couldn't tell the difference. I thought it was just part of a continuous scene.
Very well good scene, and I hope they got some good pool cleaners in.
I'm sure.
And because I believe in giving credit to those who deserve it, the producers of this were David Brown and Richard D. Zanuck, who won Best Picture for producing Driving Miss Daisy. And the cinematography, which definitely needs to be credited, given how many great shots we get in the water, was done by Bill Butler. And this film won 3 Oscars. It was nominated for 4, the only one it didn't win was Best Picture. I guess so. I mean, I guess the Academy wouldn't give Best Picture to a movie about a shark in the ocean.
Well, I think, it's like you said, it was like the first summer blockbuster. And, but there was no, I don't know. It was fine, and it took Spielberg forever to win an Oscar. Which is kind of unfair because he produced so many very good films.
I feel like Spielberg's Oscar win definitely was overdue. But at the same time, he made adventure movies, and the Academy is known to be kind of a bitch to action and adventure. He did definitely deserve, when he finally won it, it was for Schindler's List. And the other Oscar wins for this went to John Williams, no surprise, and Verna Fields, who did the movie's editing. I think the editing here was very good, as you said, didn't just go back and forth. They had good establishment. And this is interesting, Best Sound.
I didn't even know that's a category, so.
I can see that, like all the underwater scenes where you had to have the sound you'd hear underwater. Went to Richard L. Hoyt, Robert Herman Jr., Earl Mattery, and John R. Carter. The chief's wife, Ellen Brody, played by Lorraine Gary. Not a ton to say about her. She's not a simple, just a wife of the main hero character either. I thought she was a nice character. Had some good scenes with Roy Scheider, and helped him, I think, show his character in the first half.
Yes. She was somebody with some depth and was supportive of her husband, and there was a good relationship between them and all that kind of thing.
I know that Spielberg really liked her, Lorraine Gary, so much that he named the mom in Back to the Future after her. And the sons, Michael and Sean Brody, played by Chris Ribello and Jay Mello. One of Spielberg's best talents is his ability to direct child actors. Like, child actors, it's very hard for a kid to act in a movie. And Spielberg has a huge talent for getting the right performances out of kids as young as, say, 5 years old.
Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time, but yes, they reacted as normal children would have in the situations where their scenes were shot.
Chris Ribello, I thought, did a good job for the scene where Michael is shocked by the shark, and Jay Mello, I'm especially impressed by. He doesn't have much to do, but he feels like a very little kid.
Yes.
And he, talks and acts. He has that scene where he cries, and he's not too annoying, and he handles it pretty well. Lee Furio as Mrs. Kintner, she was very good, especially in that scene where she called, laid in her feelings towards the chief, as you said.
Yes.
Pretty good. And that this is fun to know. Bryan Singer, who made the X-Men movies, The Usual Suspects, he has a production company called Bad Hat Harry Productions, named after that. It was inspired by that scene where that old saggy guy in the rubber hat is joking towards Brody, and he goes, "That's some bad hat, Harry." Yeah, that guy was Alfred Wilde. And last person to mention, Susan Backlini as the first shark attack victim. And I don't know if she really went on to do anything after this. I know that she cameoed in the opening of 1941 for a parody of her scene in Jaws. Yeah, she's swimming in the ocean, and then she's lifted into the air naked by a periscope from a Japanese sub.
Well, why not?
Yeah. I think that's just about it. There's just one last thing I have to mention, because I could not live with myself if I didn't tell this story.
You have many one last things. What's this one?
Yeah, sure. That scene where Hooper's in the cage and the shark is smashing into it.
Right.
I've looked this up, and it's true. They actually used a real shark for the initial filming of that scene, but then they had to reshoot it after some complications, which led to a few continuity issues.
Yeah.
The main reason they had to do that scene many times was originally they used a smaller shark than the type of one that the film portrays, and the person in the cage obviously wasn't Richard Dreyfuss. It was a stunt double, more specifically a midget stunt double.
Oh, so it makes the shark look bigger. And
yeah. And the cage getting ripped up was not originally part of the movie, but the actual shark apparently started actually destroying the cage. And they thought the footage looked so good they would use it, but they had to reshoot some bits, and they couldn't. The dwarf stuntman refused to do the scene again.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, he's just like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out."
Yeah, there were
Nope, no sir.
not enough money to do that again.
Also, the name they called the shark throughout filming was Bruce, named after Spielberg's lawyer. So that's our review of Jaws. It is a classic. I still love it very much. How do you feel about it?
Oh, it's good to see again and again. It's unfortunate that it was in the 70s, because particularly the jacket of the mayor and the tie just shouted 70s.
I'm not one of those people that feels a movie should be ignored because it's dated. I mean,
I'm not telling you to ignore it. It's just that you know what you can place it where it is, and that's probably just as well too, because people were acted very ignorant about sharks, and I think, like I said, very early on that we generally know a lot more about sharks these days than it was known back then.
This movie, well, maybe a little dated, was selected for the National Library of Congress.
Sure.
Definitely so, and
it's summertime on the East Coast of the United States.
If you had to give this movie a rating out of 10, what would you give it?
That's 7.5, and it's hard. I mean, there's many things about it that I really like. It's unapologetically an action and a suspense movie, and I like that. But because it's that it doesn't have some things that other movies have as well. and I thought that the directing was really good, and I liked the not overuse of the actual shark. These days it would be CGI, right?
Oh, definitely. Me, just because I enjoy it so much and I have a lot of admiration for Spielberg, I give it an 8.5. I recommend it, and if you haven't seen it, check it out.
Or even if you have seen it, go see it again. It's a lot of fun.
And it's the month of July, no better time to do it. See you next time.